God. At night, from across the Dubai Marina, you can read a building's financial statements with your own eyes. The Al Sarab Tower is 610 meters tall, 120 floors, a glittering titan dominating the skyline. And for years after it opened, when the sun went down, entire bands of that tower simply went music dark, floor after floor after floor. No lights, no tenants, no revenue. This is a Supertall that cost music $2.4 billion to construct. A building backed by a massive, state-linked, sovereign development consortium in one of the wealthiest hubs on Earth. A building that won nearly every global architectural music award that exists. And it could not do the one thing every commercial building is built to do: fill itself with paying music tenants. To understand how this tower failed, you have to understand what it was supposed to music prove. Go back to the early 2000s. The land just off the coast was largely open sand and water. Then came the mega project boom, and with it, a master plan. This new sector would become the Middle East's answer to Manhattan. And at the center of that plan sat a reserved plot of land, set aside for a Supertall tower that would announce the region's absolute dominance to the world. The project was not built by a private developer betting its own money. It was developed by an institutional entity, with funding flowing primarily from state-backed capital vehicles. Construction started in 2012. The structure topped out in 2019 and opened to the public in 2021. Remember that funding structure, because when we get to the massive financial losses, you're going to want to know whose money actually evaporated, and the answer, ultimately, is the public's and the state's. Let me be clear about something up front, because this channel deals in verified facts, not cheap music shots. As a piece of engineering, Al Sarab Tower is genuinely remarkable. But the business math? That is a completely different story. So, how did the business fail this badly? Drop your theory in the comments right now. Let's open the blueprint file on this $2.4 billion monument, because on paper, it was supposed to be a triumph. Designed by a global powerhouse firm, the Al Sarab Tower features a highly advanced aerodynamic profile, engineered specifically to deflect the brutal desert winds blowing off the Arabian Gulf. The building wears a revolutionary double-skin glass facade, an outer glass capsule wrapped around an inner core. This creates a massive thermal buffer zone designed to insulate the interiors against blistering 50 degrees Celsius summer heat, cutting cooling costs by a projected 40%. It was hailed as a sustainable masterpiece, earning top-tier green credentials that theoretically allowed the landlord to demand astronomical premium rents. On paper, every single box was checked, but when the project transitioned from a rendering to real sand, the engineering timeline began to splinter. Building a 610-meter giant on reclaimed coastal land presents terrifying geophysical challenges. The foundation requires friction piles driven over 100 meters deep into soft bedrock, fighting against high water tables and aggressive hypersaline groundwater. By 2015, structural engineers monitoring the site began documenting the first silent crisis: shifting sands and microsettlement. The sheer weight of the concrete core was compressing the marine sediments faster than the predictive models had accounted for. Then came the second bottleneck: glass fatigue. In the extreme desert climate, the temperature differential between the scorching exterior glass skin and the heavily air-conditioned inner skin reached unprecedented levels. The specialized structural silicone sealants and glass panels experienced intense thermal expansion and contraction cycles. The supply chain stalled for 14 months as custom-engineered replacement glazing had to be flown in from specialized European plants. By the time the structure finally topped out in 2019, the budget had blown past its original estimates by nearly $600 million. The engineering was a triumph of human will over a hostile environment, but the delays pushed the opening right into a global economic standstill. When the doors finally opened in 2021, the market didn't cheer. It evaporated. Drop a comment below if you think engineering a building this complex on reclaimed sands was a gamble from day one. To truly see why the Al Sarab Tower sits dark, look across the city. The parallels between this project and previous overbuilt sectors in Dubai's history are striking. During the mid-2000s real estate boom, International banks and multinational corporations flooded the Dubai International Financial Center and Business Bay. Private developers built frantically to catch that wave. But the Al Sarab Tower didn't answer to market demand. It answered to prestige. The state-backed developers assumed that because a premium skyscraper was iconic, the global elite would automatically line up to lease it. Instead, the tower ran directly into the teeth of an oversupplied market. By mid-2022, a full year after its grand opening, public tracking data indicated that only about 55% of the commercial floor space had actually been leased. Worse still, of the entities that had signed contracts, barely a fraction had actually moved their employees into the building. Walk through the sprawling corporate lobbies on floor 40 or floor 70 at noon, and you are met with an eerie, hollow silence. The financial bleed is staggering. Because you cannot selectively turn off the central HVAC systems or cut security for half of a 600-meter megastructure, the daily operating costs run at absolute capacity. The cooling load alone to combat the desert heat inside an empty glass cavern drains millions of dollars a month. The project's internal ledger, leaked by industry insiders, showed that accumulating operational losses quickly pushed the development entity more than $1.2 billion into debt. The international law firms, global tech giants, and elite financial funds that fill skyscrapers in London or Singapore completely bypassed Al Sarab. Why? Because the tower held out for unrealistic, premium rental rates, completely misreading the modern corporate shift toward flexible, cost-effective regional offices. While nearby Business Bay offered discounted, highly efficient office layouts, the Al Sarab Tower stood firm on its record-breaking pedigree. It was a game of chicken between state pride and market reality, and the market won. Tell me in the comments, can any building, no matter how iconic, survive when it ignores the basic law of supply and demand? But statistics only tell half the story. To understand how a $2.4 billion tower breaks down, you have to talk to the people who actually stepped inside it. The file contains 2 personal accounts that expose the structural and operational rot behind the glittering glass. The first comes from Marcus Vance, a British corporate relocation consultant who managed the regional headquarters transition for a major European logistics firm. His clients wanted a premium address in the Marina district, and Al Sarab was pushing hard. But during the walkthroughs, Vance noticed a glaring defect built into that award-winning design. Remember that elegant, twisting double-skin facade? The dramatic gap between the outer glass skin and the inner core, combined with the extreme curved geometry of the perimeter, meant that the actual floor plates were a logistical nightmare. Vance noted that on several high-zone levels, nearly 45% of the floor area was completely unusable. It consisted of awkward, narrow angles, sweeping dead zones, and empty voids where no standard desk or conference room could physically fit. Yet, the landlord was charging premium rents based on total rentable area, not usable area. Corporations were being asked to pay millions for empty air between the inner wall and the exterior window line. Vance's client walked away, leasing 3 flat, boring, highly efficient floors in Business Bay instead. The second story comes from a senior MEP engineer, an expat who worked on the upper mechanical zones, speaking on the condition of anonymity. In late 2023, a massive failure occurred in the tower's pressurized water distribution system. The extreme heat expansion of the outer skin had put immense stress on the internal piping junctions near the building's mid-section. A high-pressure valve ruptured on the 74th floor. Because the building was largely empty, the leak wasn't detected for hours. Millions of gallons of water cascaded down through the elevator shafts and mechanical ceilings, ruining expensive electrical switchgear and flooding empty shell and core offices across 15 floors. Images of water pouring like a waterfall inside a multi-billion-dollar luxury landmark leaked onto private corporate WhatsApp groups, devastating what little reputation the building had left. To top it all off, the crown jewel of the tower, an ultra-luxury, 7-star hotel occupying the top 20 floors, sat as an empty shell. Announced to open in 2021, the hospitality group repeatedly pushed back the launch because they couldn't justify the operating costs without corporate foot traffic. For years, the summit of the tower remained pitch black at night, a literal monument to stalled ambition. If you've ever dealt with a real estate disaster where the glossy brochure didn't match reality, share your story below. So, let's close the file and state the finding plainly. The Al Sarab Tower did not fail as a structure. It stands. It gleams against the Persian Gulf. It survives the desert winds. As engineering, it is an undeniable triumph of the modern era. But as a business, it failed in ways that were entirely predictable before the first friction pile was driven into the sand. Floor plates that wasted nearly half their area. An inflexible pricing strategy that completely misjudged a softening market. A flagship luxury hotel delayed for years. And a catastrophic high-pressure water failure that exposed deep vulnerabilities to extreme heat expansion. Behind all of it lies a development model where prestige drove the pro forma. When an entity builds to make a geopolitical statement first and generate a commercial return second, market forces will eventually demand a correction. The only reason the Al Sarab Tower survives its massive debt load is that its backers possess deep enough pockets to absorb the bleeding. Here is my question for you, and I genuinely want the comment section's verdict on this one. Is a super tall skyscraper like Al Sarab a true commercial failure, or is an iconic national landmark allowed to lose billions the same way a public museum or a monument does? Was this ever actually meant to be a normal commercial building? Make your case below. The best arguments from this comments section shape which file we open next. If institutional failures hidden inside iconic architecture is your kind of story, the file on another luxury megastructure is already open on this channel. A tower with the exact opposite problem, fully sold out, yet structurally falling apart. Every collapse has a cost. Every cost has a record. We open the file.